Fed Chairman Jerome Powell says that he's never seen a white paper on MMT, or what is it? But he says that giant deficit spending is not a good plan. This is Brian Lewis with MMT Investing, and things just changed. So heads up, Jerome, if you're watching, there is a white paper for MMT theory on Warren Mosler's Twitter feed right by the top. You can just go click on it and you can read it. It takes like 10 minutes, buddy. MMT does not say that huge deficit spending is a good thing. It does not say that at all. It just says the relationships between unemployment, interest rates, taxes, size of government. It's a monetary operational theory. Doesn't say that you should be printing massive amounts of money. But Jerome Powell always smashes that like button right now, please, to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. So I wanted to follow up a little bit on Warren Mosler and talk about Jerome Powell a little bit. Well, Jerome Powell, for one, seems like a pretty nice guy to me, and it seems like a really, really difficult time to be the Fed chairman. So good luck with that, Jerome. That is quite a job that you have right now. And then I also wanted to follow up talking about Warren Mosler, who's the father of the MMT theory, who has the white paper and he has a big book on it. And is not a proponent of massive deficit spending or huge government. It's just a monetary operation theory on the value of money and monetary operations. So Warren Mosler, I was just talking about his like the history of money theory, but I didn't talk about his history really. So he's been an investment banker for his career, and he just, I guess, intuitively figured out a bunch of monetary operational things just working in the industry that allowed him to do really well as an investment banker, doing arbitrage and things like that, just by understanding how the Fed creates money and the spreads on rates and things like that. And then he also has worked with a bunch of different countries in like Europe, and helped them with their monetary situation. Like he helped Italy when Italy was in trouble and talked with their leaders. And then he talks about there's a huge difference between who issues the money and who uses the money. So if you're the money issuer, like the Congress and the Fed, you can create as much currency as you want, and the system, it's operationally impossible for like the Fed to go bankrupt. They can always create more currency units. The risk isn't bankruptcy, the risk is inflation. So, which is very different for, say, like California, because California borrows money from the Fed, and that's like an individual person who has a loan that has to pay it back. They can't create their own money. So like when you take a look at like the EU system, like all the countries in Europe used to be able to create their own currency, and now the EU is a centralized bank that creates the currency, and now all of the countries in Europe are effectively like a state is in America, where they're a user of the currency, and that sets up a really different dynamic rather than like the USA or Australia or someone that has their own independent central bank. And then, of course, America is the world reserve currency, so that's a different dynamic also. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about Warren Mosler's history and what Jerome Powell thinks about MMT. Like, he does not even know what it is or care about it at all. Like, a lot of politicians are talking about it. The Fed is sort of oblivious to the whole theory, and the Fed is not doing modern monetary theory because they don't even know what it is. Like, literally, Jerome Powell is just like, well, yeah, I've heard the word, but I have no idea what it is, and we're not doing that. Like, he just says that. And he's said a lot of interesting things other than just that recently. He said that we may be looking at a transition into competing currencies like we had earlier in the American history, and he says that giant deficits don't solve the problems that we have right now. Um, yeah, he says a lot of stuff that makes sense, and man, it's crazy right now. This international monetary system collapse that's happening is quite a thing. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on MMT because there's a lot of like buzz about MMT and people think it's crazy and it's like a crazy money printing thing, but MMT doesn't say you should print a mess of money, and the Fed itself says they're not doing MMT. They don't even know what it is. They haven't even read the theory or the idea of it, and yeah, and everyone's just saying like the Fed's just like printing money like crazy and going nuts, and they're not really even doing that right now. Like their balance sheet is going up, and they're reconnecting all the banking, international banking that's failing. The Fed is reconnecting the system kind of because there was a disconnect between the Congress and the Fed, and with the international banks that have been providing the world reserve currency to the rest of the world. And now that the international banks are screwing up, the Fed has to kind of step in and try to open channels to sort of do the job that they're failing to do. So that's what we're seeing right now. And that's why we're in a credit contraction down cycle. We kind of reached the end of like a big credit cycle in the world system, and less loans are available. And that's why the stock market's pulling down. So this is not financial advice. And please hit the like button, and happy trading, and cheers.